You're listening to the How in the World podcast, where we tackle global issues and discuss how we as Christians can make a lasting difference. My name is Rene Charest, and I pastor in the heart of the Central Valley in beautiful California. I'll be sitting down with guests from every walk of life to discover innovative ways that we can make an impact. This is the How in the World podcast. Welcome to How in the World podcast, where we talk about issues that interest you both here and abroad. And today, we have a special podcast called Power Couples. And I have special guests here, my son, Rene Charest, and his wife, Alejandra Charest. Let's just begin by telling us how you guys met and how long you've been married.
Well, we met at Fresno State. I think I was a sophomore and she was a freshman, right? And I seemed to know what the class was about. It was astronomy, and she had no desire to learn astronomy. So she found the smartest guy in the class at that time and was like, hey, do you want to do homework together? And then that was the start of it.
So Who was the smartest guy in the class? I missed that part.
Smartest and the most good-looking guy.
Yeah, maybe it was a combination of both.
Both.
It was more like a bell curve. I was not the smartest, but he was right in that line.
And then how long you guys been married?
11? 09?
Yeah, 11. I think things going to be 12 years coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's not really important to keep the years for you guys. Interesting.
No, we're a lifetime. No matter what, we're stuck together forever.
Okay, that's good. Stuck together forever. Words to live by. Very inspirational. So what this topic is, it's just in every decade, because of the way lifestyles change, culture changes, cost of living changes, people are having to figure out how they're going to stay in healthy marriages, raise families. And I titled this topic, The Power Couples, because right now in the United States, 2/3 of all married couples are both working full-time. They have to work full-time to support their families. And so, but you guys have done something that not everybody does. You've gone into real estate. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you're both considered independent contractors, self-employed.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so for instance, you're in California. Every year in California, 500,000 houses are sold. And there's just under 200,000 realtors in California alone. So obviously people are interested in this. So my question is, when did you guys decide to become realtors, and why?
Well, I worked in the corporate world, and I didn't like the corporate scene. I think it was more of not how much you know, it's who you know. And I just didn't want to be friends with people at corporate. And there was always a glass ceiling that I saw. And unless I get chummy with the boss and become best friends, I didn't see myself moving up the ladder, even though I had more education and more hours under my belt. So that's when my husband said that I should do something a little more independent, be an independent contractor. And the first thing that came to my brain was selling Mary Kay. Mm-hmm. I don't like putting on makeup, so I can't sell something that I really don't have a passion for. But then you mentioned real estate, and my mom has purchased rentals and holds on to them, and that's her monthly income, and that's something that I'm definitely passionate about. So I'm like, that's perfect. And then we made a bet as soon as I started working that whoever made the least amount that month had to clean the house. I've never cleaned the house since.
And I got into it about four years ago, maybe 5, just before we had our first son, Marcus. The conversation was, I used to do bookkeeping, accounting. I was the CFO of a medical company. And as she said, she took off in her career and her success extremely fast and very well. So when we had the child coming, or Marcus coming rather, there was an idea of, okay, we want to be able to maintain what she's done. And even if I were to still work at my job, we would, if she had to just cut back a quarter, honestly, at that point, it would cut back into what we could earn and our potential for growth in that business. So we decided that I should get my license. So I took tests, got my license, started off slow, and then we've just been working together ever since.
So how many years now have you been realtors?
I'm going on 9.
Yeah. And I'm right around 5 years, I think.
5 years. Mm-hmm. And so would you say, let's say someone's out there and they just got married and they're thinking about having a family. And obviously, well, let's start here. First of all, what kind of personality do you need to succeed in real estate? Let's start there.
Honestly, you could have any personality. We're complete opposites. I am an eccentric. I am loud. I'm aggressive. I'm fun. I'm all over the place. I get energy by meeting new people. And my husband's the opposite. He's an introvert. He's a little more quiet, reserved.
Yeah, I think in our relationship too with the clients, I tend to be a little more personable. Alex looks at herself like she would say it like the doctor that delivers a baby, where she's there when you need her. She gets the job done well, efficiently, and then, okay, I'll see you later, right? And then the nurses take over. In this situation, I'm more like a nurse in that I tend to take the clients who need a little more nurture care, who need a little more time spent with them, and I kind of find more creative avenues to basically make them feel important, whereas Alex is more like, you want to buy a house? You want to chat? No, thanks. I have a job to do, right? And I'll take the more slow burn people. So we kind of work well that way because it divides up the clientele based on the needs of them. So she's one end of the spectrum and I'm the other.
So obviously, we call this segment the power couple. You guys are working together, correct?
Every day, all day, every minute.
So how is that? Again, we're talking to someone, they're married, they're looking to make a career, and you just added a whole bunch of things. You're self-employed, your personalities are different, you want to start a family, and now you're going to be together all the time. So what would you say, would you recommend this lifestyle for someone who's wanting to raise a family, being a realtor?
I would say that in the same way a child kind of brings out the strengths and weaknesses in a marriage, so does working together. I think if you have a hard time being around the person that frequently, if you both have your own desk jobs and you don't see each other for 9-10 hours of the day, it'll probably be quite an adjustment to work together. And I think that Alex and I have such a healthy relationship and such a healthy marriage because we complement each other so well that it works the same in the business. Now she's up on this level and I'm on a lower level. So she brings me up, I bring her down as far as down to earth. But very rarely do we have moments where it's like, I can't talk to you. It's always resolved very quickly. We get over any issues very fast. And if that's something that's hard to do, or, you know, if in your marriage you tend to have difficulty with someone or your personalities don't mesh, then working together is probably going to be really difficult. It'll just exacerbate those traits that are already there.
So obviously you get married, you decide to work together, you start having children. And again, this is, as a pastor, when I have the most counseling with people that are married, it's when children come into the equation. And you have 3, and tell me their ages because you had them pretty quickly.
Yeah, our youngest is about to turn 2 in October, and then our second is about to turn 3 in August, and then our oldest just turned 4. So it's all within a year and a half of each other. Very, very close in age.
So that is, you're in a client service industry, and I assume people call you whenever they feel like it. Tell me the earliest someone's called you and the latest someone's called you or texted you for a deal. Just
the other day, I got a text at 2:43 a.m. That's pretty early.
Wow.
And the latest is...
Yeah, I mean, it's just what you... It's just... It really is just... It depends on people's common decency And if someone's not a commonly decent person, they're going to call you at any whim of the day. Majority of people, 90% of people, generally respect certain hours, right? Not before 7 in the morning and usually not after 10. But if you deal with a lot of clients like we've dealt with over 500, 600, 700 transactions in the course of the career. Even if that's just 10%, you're still going to get a lot of people who are calling you and bugging you at hours that are pretty obscene.
So tell me, okay, so you have Marcus, your first child, and you have Xander, your second child, and now you have Henry, your third child. Now tell me what has changed and how you have to live and operate as husband and wife while you're still working. Tell me the biggest adjustments you've made. Oh, sorry. It's weird.
I think the biggest adjustment we have made is sacrificing personal time, video game time, watching movies.
We spend a lot of time in the closet, in the pantry. That's where work calls are taken, because it's like we go work call, someone goes and hides in the pantry to get away from all the clutter and the noise, and I think we spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, but I think that's one thing. We do sacrifice our own time to spend time with them. But luckily I have great in-laws, and he has great parents that you guys take them every Thursday, and that's a huge benefit to our marriage, because that is our let's talk about each other and not just real estate and the kids, because the kids do take up every minute of your free time.
The biggest concern that people have in marriage, the biggest counseling issue I have in marriage is money. It's the number one reason couples fight. So let's talk about, as a power couple, where both of you are working. It's not like, 50 years ago where only the man worked and the man handled the money. This is a whole different environment. Both couples are working. Both couples bring in money. So tell me how you guys manage your money. Is that a point of tension? And is there some advice you can give to people to help them as couples suddenly, as I say, the two are one flesh. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. And so how do you guys deal with money?
I'm going to have to pass this off to my husband, because I literally have no idea how much money we make until the very end of the year, where they give me that, what's 1099. And I was like, oh, really? So he pretty much takes care of all my finances.
And I would say in this regard, we're very fortunate, because neither one of us care about money, truthfully, in any capacity. We have found a lot of success in what we do. And if we need something or want something, we're never in need or want, but we also do not look for things to buy. We are just, it's a funny phrase, but I say, I suffer from an inexhaustible amount of contentment, where I could be content in a
that must be a spiritual gift.
It has to be, because I could be in a double wide and be just as happy as I am in our gorgeous home. But that being said, is that neither one of us looks at money as anything other than something that can get us a good or commodity. There's no greed. There's no desire for more. I know Alex wants to grow her business, but really it's not about the money for her. It's just about success and winning. It's more of a competition in a game. And so we have never once had a fight about money at all. And if she ever wants something, then she's free to get it. Or if I ever want something, I will sneakily buy it, and she never knows.
Never know.
So then what's your motivation for working so hard?
I'm just aggressive by nature, and I just want to win. Always. There's a sales competition happening.
What do you consider winning? Talk to me. What does winning mean to you?
Being one of the best.
Okay.
So I can never be, I can't never say never, but I don't want to be the number one realtor in the world. But I like that I'm, top 13 in our Fresno County. There is over 5,000 realtors. To be put there is a huge accomplishment. And I like to be number one in my office, because I know who I'm up against. And I like to be, I just like to win. And so that makes me want to work harder to be more successful.
Mm-hmm. So you have this competition drive, you have the contentment gift, and so it seems like you guys are a really good pair. You've paired up really well.
Yeah, I think as well. Alex was talking about it earlier. If it wasn't for me, she would probably be on the cover of Fortune 500 for women, real estate agents and things like that. But I think that it'd be so easy for life to pass by because she's like a lioness, right? If you've ever seen when an animal hunts, like the eyes, the way that the head moves, it's focused solely on one thing, and that is the prey, that is the deal, that is the transaction. Whereas I tend to be like, hey, honey, our kids are only gonna want to crawl up on our lap and yell like a bunch of birds from downstairs, mom, 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 mom. Like today we're leaving, we're getting ready, and you just hear three little voices downstairs, mom, 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 mommy. But like that's gone so fast, and life is a long run. And so I feel like being able, for me with my contentment, be like, hey, I know work is stressful, or I know that client's stressful, but let's just sit down with the boys and read a story or build a tent in the house. And it's just, I feel like we're both able to do that because, again, if it was me, I don't think we would have much of what we have. I also don't know if we would have the same future for our family and our boys and have that planning. But I think that we are able to make it so that we can live our best lives with each other.
And that's awesome. And by the way, you have a saying, I forget how it goes, about the days are long and the year. What is that saying about the kid raising children?
The days are long, but the years are short.
Days are long.
Every day you go to bed, and if any of you guys out there have had kids, and I know my father has, when you lay down or if you have some time to yourself, it's you just can't do anything but sit on the couch. And so it's just exhausting every day. But Marcus just turned 4, and you go through your, nowadays it's nice because you just go through your phone memories, right?
Yeah.
And you scroll up a year or two, and you're like, that kid was a baby. Now he's talking, and now he's doing this, and it happens so fast that if you're not living in that moment, it's just gone forever, Mm-hmm.
And you said an interesting statement, but there's more to it. You said, you don't care about money, but you do care about money because you're thinking about, you can't do this forever. You must have a strategy for retirement. 85% of all Americans have less than $15,000 put away. That's frightening. Mm-hmm. And so you have 3 boys, they're going to grow up, they're going to get married, they're going to go to college or whatever, and you're going to retire one day. So do you think about your retirement? Are you planning for your retirement? How old are you guys, by the way? You're both under 40, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I won't ask your exact age, but I'm just saying you're both under 40.
Yes.
But you're both planning for retirement now. Is that correct? And so how are you planning for retirement? What are you doing?
Well, my mom set a really good example. She worked as she had a daycare, and she would save as much money as possible. And then when she had enough, she would buy a rental and then rent it. And that would be her fun money, right? Because all of the money for daycare went towards bills and food, and the rental would be fun money. And then she saved and got another rental and another rental. And now that she's retired, her Social Security, the amount she gets, so minimal, where she would have to eat like beans and rice and tortillas every day just to stay afloat. But her rentals have provided her with additional income every month that I don't have to worry about her. Mm-hmm. She could buy whatever she wants. She lives frugally, naturally, but she doesn't have a need or a want anywhere financially. She's fine. And so she set a really good example for me. So I'm 32, and we already own 2 rentals, and then we have our primary residence all paid off. And that's a beautiful feeling to know that we're receiving 2 rentals as income, and we're saving as much as possible because ideally I believe in what I do for a living, and what I do is buy and sell real estate. So I want to invest in what I do. And so every time we have an opportunity to buy another rental, we'll continue doing that. And then when we pass, our children will have, supplemental income, or they could liquidize it and choose to do whatever they want with it.
So if you've invested in rentals and you're thinking about this ongoing income, what another big strategy that or problem that marriages have is couples getting into debt and fighting over their debt. So what is your opinion, or what is your feeling about having debt?
Do not. It's easier said than done, right? Everything in every financial institution is set up in a way that companies can profit off debt, right? They're not giving it out of the goodness of their heart. They're giving you a 30-year loan at, even now at 2.7 whatever percent. Over the life of that loan, you're going to pay an additional $50, $60, $70, $100, $200,000. And so to us, as opposed to buying more things quickly, we always pay off our debts immediately. Again, we're in a fortunate situation where we can do that because we found success, and thanks to Alex's hard work in building her name and reputation, we can continue with that. But I definitely feel like if we had that weight over our head of debt, you would kind of wake up every morning with that as what was that Damocles sword? What was it? I
forget his name.
Okay, yeah.
The one that hung over his head.
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
string.
The string hung. So at any time
yeah.
it can fall on you, right? You just don't know. And so I think that's one of the other reasons why we're able to have such a contented life, is that we know that if we don't sell a house this month, we haven't overextended ourselves. And I think that we do everything frugally, and if we make a purchase, we do it with cash. We don't want to over leverage and get in a position where if things go awry, that we don't have the funds necessary to live a life and provide a life for our family.
Well, you guys have friends, obviously, that are married like you and been about the same amount of years, and you have friends that have had children, and you have friends that have healthy marriages, and you have friends that have been divorced or unhealthy marriages. So talk to people that are, they're just anxious about marriage in general and staying married. What have you observed as the greatest concerns that you see that could really tear a couple apart?
Well, I think you hit it on the nose earlier. I think finances are a big problem. It could be a big problem, but I also feel that communication is free, and it's so easy to communicate. I tell him how I feel every time I have a problem with something. I'm not
if
shy.
She doesn't, there's times where she just wants to be introspective, but I tend to ferret it out of her. Like, she'll be really upset, but I tend to push until she gets it out. And that usually means it's going to be in an angrier way, but it also means that we get resolution quicker and it doesn't fester.
And that's also holding grudges. That's unnecessary. If we talk about it and there is an apology and we resolved it, you have to let it go, because holding resentment and grudges and throwing it back in their face in the future isn't going to accomplish anything. So communication is key for every life, marriage, everything.
And the last thing I think is important for work together and life together is one thing that I said to another group of realtors we were talking to about this was, you have to be your partner's own biggest fan. And you have to celebrate their successes with them and acknowledge those accomplishments so that it doesn't become complacent and you forget the sacrifices that each other make every day. Because either one of us would rather do nothing. We'd rather just relax and lay out or spend time with the boys. But if there's a work call that's late, and it goes long and she has to go upstairs or vice versa, and then I'm juggling 3 kids in a bathtub and it's a mess and they're pooping in the tub and screaming. It's frustrating in the moment, but you have to keep the perspective that each party is doing what they can for the betterment of the family. And I think it's easy for people to get self-absorbed and think that only their struggle in that moment is important, not necessarily see the bigger picture of what you're both creating and what you're both sacrificing in order to make this family work.
Well, then, speaking of family, how do you, since you both work together, since you're both in a customer service business, how and when do you turn off the business so that you can turn on the brain that's just the married brain or the family brain? How do you create space, and do you schedule time during the week where you're saying, I'm not answering the phone, or we're going to turn off this part, or we're going to only be together? I mean, how do you negotiate maintaining a healthy relationship?
That's difficult, and I think I don't.
We'll let you know when we figure it out.
Yeah, I work all the time, and he's so understanding that if we're in the middle of a conversation, but my phone rings, he will pause, I'll finish it, and then we'll continue with the same conversation. And he doesn't take it personally, and neither do I. So we don't really turn off our phones. We don't answer our phones after a certain hour because it's, we have to sleep. But we don't have a healthy relationship with work and family. We live in the moment for family now, and then I'm working, and then family, and then working. It's kind of.
But I think the biggest thing is the moments that you're not, because the thing about real estate is you throw a rock out of your front yard, you're going to hit two realtors hiding in the bushes waiting to sell your home. And so you have to understand that while as an agent and as a professional, we know we have value because we're good at what we've done and we're top producers. But if we are not present for our client in what is the largest financial transaction most people go through in their lives, they will not feel secure. So it's almost like each client you parent if they're a first-time home buyer, because they are extending themselves beyond anything they've ever done, and that needs to be front and center. But when the phone call's done and the work is done, then you have to switch back to be present. So it's almost like pausing a video game, right? Where you're in the moment, oh my goodness, pause. Okay, I'm going to do this. I got to go make some food. And then I'm back in the moment. So I think the biggest thing is not necessarily spacing time, but being present when we have the opportunity to be present with each other and capitalizing on those moments, even though it's not sectioned off.
Right.
So obviously you have a unique situation where you're not offended when she takes the phone call, or vice versa. I can't imagine that's very common.
Well, I think it's just because people tend to not be able to look beyond themselves or what they see as their immediate needs. And you need to look at the family as an organism and realizing that taking that phone call is providing nourishment to the organism and the family. And no matter how you feel in that moment, it doesn't change the fact that what's being done is a necessary function. And you just need to get over yourself or your own emotions and say, this is for the family organism, regardless of whether or not I was in the middle of a story and she had to take a phone call. Your story can wait, right? Your story can wait. It's not going to change the ending.
We're together forever.
Well, you do it when your children interrupt you. You don't have children hours where they're not allowed to speak after a certain hour. So I think you're looking at it as, this is part of supporting my family. Therefore, I'll deal with this tension of being interrupted by people. Yeah. But because you guys do take those calls, you are top producers in your field.
Yep.
And so there's a cost to being a top producer. The if you were to talk to a young family a young couple, they just got married. They just got married. All right, if you go back all those years, 12 years ago, whatever it was, and what can you tell me what you think they're going to, what's going to be the biggest challenge in the first year? What should they be aware of?
Their weight. I'm just telling you, we got married our first year.
Oh, man.
We ate so much.
It was fun. It was glorious, but it was so much food all the time. Like you're past the, what do they call it when you're peacocking? You're trying to look good, attract a mate. Right. You're done. You got your mate for life, and then it's just like cheese on pizza, on throwing extra cheese on
extra pepperoni and bacon.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the grease. We'll take it.
That's really good advice, by the way. All right.
But I also think too, and it depends obviously on the situation, the people, but we never lived together prior, right? So our habits were not necessarily known to each other in that way. And so figuring out like if one person is dirtier than the other, we were both.
Who's the messy one?
We're both
really
bad.
It's not
It's
like,
just like,
but,
it is what it is.
But the volume of clothing I have is significantly less than hers. And I still remember the first year of marriage, like I would get out of bed. It was almost like I was in a swimming pool of clothes, like on every area. I mean, it was never a point. It was never a problem for us, but it's definitely the habits of the person. If you haven't lived with them and vetted those out, you're going to learn a lot about them really quickly. And then at that point, it's just patience and understanding and communication, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, I mean, I don't know why people just sit there in surly silence all the time, not addressing an issue when you can resolve it by conversation. Even if it's an uncomfortable conversation, they need to happen, right? Like it just can't not.
So you have a pretty good support group then. You seem to have a lot of friends, you have family, you've kind of surrounded yourself with a support group of people to kind of help you as you go through this, raising a family and everything.
Yeah, certainly with the children, we have a great support group. We have a great example of healthy marriages through my father and mother and through other people that we interact with. But I think that the biggest thing that we have is even though we have a support group, if we had the choice, we would always rather just be with each other, right? There's no, we don't feel like we need necessarily, I don't want to say crutch, but we don't need the input of others in our lives to make us feel complete. We have a great loving relationship, and if I had a choice to go out to eat with friends or go out to eat with Alex, it would 100% be just her. You know, I'd rather stay at home and eat food with her and play video games than go out with anyone else.
So one of the biggest challenges they say with marriages is couples trusting one another. And when you look at the statistic of healthy marriages versus divorce, people who practice their faith, not who have a faith, people who practice their faith have the lowest divorce rate. So what does faith, what does it add? What value does it add to your lives and to your marriage? And you think does it help you stay healthy, and is it a benefit to your life? Because many of the people that watch this podcast, they're on a journey. They're just searching for what that means to have faith. They're just part of everyday life, and I think they're interested because they want to trust each other, and they hear that people that practice their faith have better, healthy relationships. So what does that mean to you, and how does that live out in your life?
Well, I would say on the aspect of faith starting not spiritual in that way is I have no qualms, questions, or quarrels that Alex will be faithful to me forever. And if I had any distrust, real estate would not be the right job because she gets, obviously, I think she's gorgeous. And so she gets texts and calls from guys all the time because their number's public, right? And she has people trying. If I was the guy who was going through text messages on her phone and be like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? If she goes out for happy hour for a networking group, if she talks to some guy, I'm not going to care because at the end of the day, it's cheesy, but like that John Bublé song, like save the last dance for me, right? You can dance, go have your fun, but at the end of the night, the last dance is mine. And there's never been, I never have, because of who she is and the strength of her character, I know without a doubt that I have nothing to worry about. So my faith in her is also absolute. There's never been a question, and that's never been a thought that's even crossed my mind.
And Rene is so clueless when it comes to women hitting on him. He has no idea. I was flirting with him for a while, and I thought he didn't like me because he wasn't getting the hint. So I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. And then he texts me, he's like, why aren't you talking to me anymore? But it's true. We trust each other, and faith is important because it brings the family together. There's just so much positivity that comes with faith. Going to church every Sunday is like a jump start to our week. It's
just for everyone out there, if you have 3 children, it's also a struggle to get there. It's something that is a commitment that has to be made. My father just talked to me about this recently too, is even though they're young and they may not remember anything, the importance is that there's that repetition of making this a holy day or a holy time to go to church. And not just go to church, but make it a part of your home. But the act of getting up, getting them dressed in clothes they're going to muddy immediately. You're going to get them in their church clothes and they're going to poop. And then you got to change them out again. And then you got to get back. There's going to be vomit in the car. You're never going to, most oftentimes, you're not going to feel like going to church. But it is the actual practice of making sure it's a priority that will stick with them more than the message really will.
Well, and here's an interesting thing that I've noticed about you two, and it's important for people to hear this, that obviously you've got values. Where'd those values come from? Why is it that you have the value of trust, or you have the value of honoring your spouse? I mean, where did that value come from? How did you develop that value?
That's a tough question.
I mean, I think
don't
that
know.
I feel like I saw a lot of it in the home. I got a lot of it from my parents and a lot of their relationship. But I also think that part of it is just being able, again, to surrender your fleshly need for constant affirmation, or for constant, like, you have to know that not every day your partner is going to say, I love you. And not every day are you guys going to have a good day. But there's a general curve overall. And you can see that and see how they treat you, and know that oftentimes that if it's a bad day, they're probably going to come at you with the problems and that frustration. But that's just because you're the closest one to them, and you can help give them that comfort, and they can use you as that scratching post. And I feel like that idea of being there for someone and letting them speak to you and into you is something that comes with time, and just by knowing the person, and basically being able to extrapolate out how they are, and basically know that on their worst day, that's not who they are. And you have to look at the overall story with that person and know that the one you invested your life in is the person that you're going to invest your life in. And it's not a case-by-case thing.
The other thing is, and this is okay, I'm sorry.
No,
what are you going
no.
to say? This is an important one because I've noticed this. This has been a challenging 2 years, as you know. We had a horrific, vitriolic political time that we went through as a nation. 2021. Then we had the global shutdown, the 6-week flatten the curve that turned out to be now 2 years. And you can see the anger, the frustration, the division of our nation, and all the fighting and the rioting and everything. Yet, I have never seen either of you, for some reason, you managed not to get caught up in the politics, the anger, the hatred. You seem to be able to get through that. And I'm wondering, is this just your generation you're sick of it, or are you individually, I mean, it doesn't impact you, but as someone who's in a Christian environment, you better believe I deal with a lot of this. And there's actually people feeling they're physically attacking their values and their lifestyle. So, but you guys are still raising your family, your marriage is good, you're making money, you're doing great, and you managed to get through it without really a scratch. Explain to me why you were able to do that, and is it something that your generation is learning to do, or are you guys special, or what do you think's happening? Because there's a lot of bad stuff happening all over the place all the time.
I think that the reason why it doesn't really it bothers us, but we don't show it or reflect it. It's because we do the best we can every day. Every day we do the best we can, and we help as many people as possible. But we can't change the world overnight. And so I feel like if everyone had that positive attitude where today's going to be a great day, I'm going to make it the best day ever. And if I have to wear my mask today at Big Fives because they require me, then I will follow the rules because this is not my building and this is their rules, and I want to shop at Big Five or Walmart, wherever. So I'm going to wear it. If they say my child has to wear it and he's 4 and he doesn't want to wear it, okay, we can't go in. We move on. Don't let it bother you. You just move on and you do whatever else you're going to do. Some people just simmer and then rant on Facebook and it just spirals out of control. And why are you giving them so much power over your day? You move on, you can't change anything, and then you continue to have a great day.
That's a good point.
I also think, though, that a lot of it comes down to the fact that we are fortunate in that we haven't had to really taste the desperation that a lot of people have had. We work in real estate, and that's basically one of the few sectors keeping the economy afloat right now. The market is booming. That's due to lack of inventory, but if you're a hungry realtor, you can go out and you can procure those sales because there are buyers who want to buy a home. But we haven't necessarily felt the twinge that so many Americans have because let's say they opened up a restaurant, right? And then they have to shut it down instantly, right? I know that we went to the No Surrender Laser Tag. We went to their grand opening for the Chambers of Commerce because they're opening the Kings Canyon one.
Right.
They had to shut it down. They put all that money into it, and then they had to stop. So I understand that a lot of people are coming from a place where they are struggling to make the ends meet. And we, fortunately, have not had that. So I cannot say if things turned on their heads, if we would be as calm as we are now. But I know that we have been blessed to be a part of an industry that we have been able to stay busy and active, and we haven't had to fear for the future of ourselves or our children. And that really helps to take that weight off, and that doesn't really bring that impact. I think we would still be fine, but I know that we have not felt what a lot of people have.
So I want to, this has been an incredible interview. You guys have done a great job, and I do think you are a great example of a power couple, the kind of couple that's managing to be successful as husband and wife, raising a family, doing business. But I want you to speak a word to someone right now, and they're just struggling. They're not successful. They don't even know if they have what it takes to make it happen. And they are fearful of either being married or staying married. So just give them a little pep talk, each of you, of what you would say to them to kind of help them process this and let them know everything's going to be okay.
So I'm all about business. Emotion is very hard for me. So my advice would be just work as hard as you can in whatever you're doing, but you put 110% into it because someone will see your value. You're valuable. You just haven't figured out how valuable you are. Believe me, everyone is valuable. Put your head down, work as hard as you can, give it your all because I promise you that's going to flourish.
And I think for the marriage component, I think for the people out there who struggle with it, whether that be with the funding, with the money, whether that be with trust or anything like that, the biggest part for me just comes from removing your current emotional self from the situation and looking at it as a whole. Looking at it as a fact that your partner is doing what they believe they need to do most oftentimes to help bring more to the family. If your wife is constantly on you about doing a project, which I'm bad at, it's not because she just wants it done. It's because she wants that screen mesh put up so we can have the doors open, the kids can go outside, we don't have mosquitoes coming in the house, right? Silly example, but it's not an affront or an attack on my character. She's not cutting into my time to be mean. It's because it's for the betterment of the family household. And that's what I think most people lose, is that they tend to look at it as my time, not your family's time. And that's where it needs to be, is you need to shift your perspective from being a child and looking at everything as your own, even your time, and looking at it as you need to share it with the ones you've chosen to share it with.
That's excellent. You guys have been incredible guests. And I just want to say, remember, How in the World podcast is designed to handle any subject of any kind. And so make sure you subscribe, share this with a friend, hit the little bell so you have notifications of what's coming. But I want to hear about the topics you want us to talk about. Maybe no one else is talking about it, or guests you want me to interview here or overseas. I don't care where they are. We'll Zoom them in. So let us know the topics that interest you. Comment, and subscribe to How in the World podcast. Until next time, have an incredible week.